As a young citizen of as a young As a young citizen of India, armed with technology, knowledge, and love for my nation, with a vision of transforming India into a developed nation, I'm joining Shobhit University. What about you?
Very good morning to all the participants from India and abroad. Shobhit Institute of Engineering and Technology, Meerut, deemed to be university and its centers of excellence, Center for Informatics Development Solutions and Application, and Center for Industry 4.0 Technology Studies and Application, in association with African Asian Rural Development Organization, ARDO, New Delhi, organized this weekly international webinar series on open source digital technologies towards self-reliant India, Atmanirbhar Bharat. Today is the 86th edition of the webinar series, 6th August 2022. It is being organized on every Saturday at 11:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. Indian Standard Time. On behalf of the Honorable Chancellor, His Excellency, the Secretary General ARDO, Honorable Vice Chancellor, the faculty members of the university, and on my behalf, and as Professor Emeritus and Chairman of Center of Excellence, Center for Agricultural Informatics and E-Governance Research Studies, Center for Agribusiness and Disaster Management Studies, and Center for Informatics Development Solutions and Application, Center for Industry 4.0 Technology Studies and Application, and Center for Health Informatics and Computing. Let me welcome our guest speaker of today's webinar, Madam Astrid Rosemary Ndagano Haas, Urban Advisor, Independent Consultant from Kampala, Uganda. We welcome you, Madam. And to talk on the topic, making urbanization work for the poor through new technologies, I wish to inform the participants and the speaker that this university regularly conducts two webinar series, namely National Webinar Series on Doubling Farmers' Income by 2022, Atmanirbhar Bharat in Agriculture, on every Thursday, and International Webinar Series on Open Source Digital Technology towards Self-Reliant India on every Saturday. We completed 85 editions till last week, and I'm very happy to inform the participants that this international webinar series got speakers from both in India and abroad. And that is also true with the national webinar series on doubling farmers' income by 2022. And the national webinar series on doubling farmers' income by 2022 has seen so far more than 16,000 views of this video, which is available on the Shobhit University's website and YouTube. And this international webinar series has got the views around the world by more than 11,000 so far. And this international webinar series, these two centers of excellence, Center for Informatics Development Solutions and Application and Center for Industry 4.0 Technology Studies and Application, have organized 85 lectures on various topics, namely open technologies to provision simple and economical IT infrastructure, a roadmap for students using free and open source software and reaching goals of Atmanirbhar Bharat, open source software in industrial IoT for SMEs, free and open source software for adoption and business models, open data platform for smart digital government, technology imperatives make in India for self-reliance, edge artificial intelligence, data governance for self-reliant India, digital India transforming governance and society, India's email service, citizen@indiamail.com in 22 constitutionally recognized languages, ecosystem architecture for digital transformation, education system cyber critical infrastructure, seizing opportunities in open innovation and value creation network in the digital world for self-reliant economy by Dr. Jabamali Vinanji Arachi, ensuring food security, safety, and compliance through technology. Digital India, urgent need for semiconductor manufacturing in India. Technology investment in agriculture value chain, role of foreign direct investments, entrepreneurship and skill development, AI design pathways, the rise of platform economy, revisiting value chain governance, era of automation, industrial robotics, and Industry 4.0 into German perspective of technology transfer, skill gap analysis, and opportunities. Role of artificial intelligence in healthcare, current developments in diagnosis and vaccine research, digital agri-tech and agri-startup perspective, health informatics network value chain, e-health system and beyond. Leveraging emerging technologies for ensuring transparent and traceable agri and food supply chain. Unleash the power of citizen development for enterprise software development, e-governance models towards sustained quality service to citizens backed by technology. Indian MSME to adopt Industry 4.0 technology capabilities, urgent need for mentorship and accelerator program, building public digital platform using microservices and APIs, health informatics network value chain, early childhood development and learning. Health informatics network value chain, clinical artificial intelligence, very important, clinical artificial intelligence, interface between machine learning and health informatics. Health informatics network value chain, importance of social medicine and community health in the times of health emergency. Gravity filter, a simple low-cost solution to drinking water treatment in rural India. Open source GovTech startups empowering growth and automation. Digital transformation in small enterprises and small businesses of India, challenges and opportunities. National Digital Twine Program, need for a robust geospatial infrastructure needed for smart cities. Industry 4.0 in MSMEs, benefits of indigenously developed collab card from National Informatics Center. Mass serialization and anti-counterfeiting solutions to fight illicit trade. Cybersecurity, risk challenges and solutions, intelligence approach to reduce the cyber risk. New Internet IPv6 root server toward Atmanirbhar Connected Bharat. Indian startups reflections and possible policy interventions needed for scaling up to Gram Panchayat. Blockchain and crypto for digital assets platform, pathways for global trade. Robot as a service, leverage technology to solve enterprise challenges. Space startups, connecting to international markets with emerging business models. Enabling technologies for future vision. Vivekananda Secondary Education and Skills Development Mega Project, its potential impact on rural entrepreneurship and the rural economy in India. Sports Grail, a digital sports media platform and prospects of Indian sports industry sustainability model at global level. Pharma 4.0, Industry 4.0 tech applications to pharmaceutical manufacturing, path to a digital transformation. Accelerate and scale non-linear growth through partner ecosystem. Technological renaissance and the human capital, a perspective. Health informatics network value chain, medical outreach challenges and potential. Beyond COVID-19, revitalizing micro and small enterprises. Project management essentials, launchpad for future CEOs and startup founders and beyond. Society 5.0, a new society beyond Industry 4.0 and post COVID-19. Small village, oblique community, the African ICT oblique IoT lesson. Digital economy, ways and means to protect and empower for self-reliance. Pragmatic ways of Atmanirbhar Bharat, democratization of essential services by using sustainable energy as a catalyst, transforming India through relevant education and vocational training, digital technology in simplifying citizen life, on learning during the pandemic and its future, smart microeconomic zone, pathway for self-reliance at village level, crime prediction support system, knowledge management for development partnership to achieve the sustainable development goals of UN and implementing the Agenda 20 by Professor Dr. Andreas Bronner from Vienna. Millet value chain from IoT to blockchain, a traceability roadmap. Aspirational district program in left-wing extremism affected district, a successful model of data-driven governance. Digital agriculture supply chain and trading hub, a geo-economic perspective. Market-driven agriculture needed for development of crop-specific strategies at block level. An open agri-network to unlock the $1 trillion plus potential of Indian agriculture with the smallholder farmers, developing rural entrepreneurship to ensure doubling of farmers' income, leveraging the power of convergence through connecting the dots, agri startups, agripreneurs, and rural innovators. Agronomy plus artificial intelligence is equal to precision farming, doubling farmers' income, imperatives of plant health informatics network, developing commercial breadfruit value chain, to help farmers reach high value markets, commodity value chain creation through agri network and agri AI by Andrew Gavagan from Australia, farm to plate, a one-stop agri-tech platform to simplify supply chain and e-governance needs of food and perishable commodities. Health Informatics Network Value Chain National Animal Disease Reporting System NADRS 2012 and beyond. Artificial intelligence and metaverse frontiers in workspace. Coconut value chain challenges transforming into opportunities. Coffee informatics value chain facilitating smallholder coffee farmers into business. Health informatics network value chain building of one health ecosystem. Role of digital architecture. Diversification of fish and fisheries resource management and its challenges in Bangladesh. Data mining and digital agriculture. Drone technology ecosystem empowering smallholder farmer in India. Fisheries informatics network value chain business plan for fisheries cooperative societies to attract investors. Today is the 86th edition of this very important webinar series. We'll have the talk by Madam Astrid Haas, Urban Advisor, Independent Consultant, Kampala, Uganda, and former Policy Director, International Growth Center, London School of Economics, on very important topic, making urbanization work for the poor through new technologies. Dear participants, please see the keywords: urbanization, poor upliftment, and new technologies. Atmanirbhar Bharat is the vision of our Honorable Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi, of making India a self-reliant nation rested on 5 I's: intent, inclusion, investment, infrastructure, and innovation, based on 5 pillars: quantum jump in economy, not incremental economy, the infrastructure, one that represents modern India, system, 21st century technology driven, vibrant demography, source of energy for self-reliant India, and demand, whereby the strength of our demand and supply chain should be utilized to full capacity. Digital India program aims to transform India into a knowledge-based economy and a digitally empowered society. And it has been the major driving force for the budding entrepreneurs and a key contributor for the phenomenal growth of Indian IT sector. According to NASCOM, and India's IT sector is set to become an $227 billion industry by financial year 2022, registering a 15.5% growth, which is the highest, in over a decade. And on 20th February 2019, the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology published a report titled India's $1 trillion Digital Opportunity. In collaboration with McKinsey and Company, the report identified 30 digital themes, if scaled up nationally, can accelerate India's progress in 9 key areas. Recent trends in the digital economy. It's the rise of platform economy. Digital platform economy is emerging. And it is a platform economy is a tendency for commerce to increasingly move towards and favor digital platform business models. Platform economy provides an opportunity for SMEs and startups. 10 emerging technologies making an impact are artificial intelligence, 5G, IoT, serverless computing, biometrics, augmented reality, virtual reality, blockchain, robotics, natural language processing, and quantum computing. In India, we have an ecosystem: agriculture 4.0, industry 4.0, and society 5.0. Industry 4.0 has come from German, society 5.0 has come from Japan, and India would like to give it to the whole world, agriculture 4.0. And we also have Amrit Kal led up to 100, next to 25 years of strategic perspective plan to take India to new India. By 2014, this represents 100 years of freedom from the British era, and this has a vision which has got which is based on complementing the macroeconomic level growth, focus with a microeconomic level all inclusive welfare focus. Microeconomic growth focus with a microeconomic level all inclusive welfare focus. And in this connection, today's talk is very important. Promoting digital economy and fintech, technology enabled development, energy transition, and climate action, relying on virtuous cycle starting from private investment with the public capital investment helping to crowd in private investment. And this is based on a blueprint having 4 priorities. Prime Minister's Gadi Shakti, it means with great speed. Inclusive development, there is no silo or vertical infrastructure, it is all horizontal interoperable. Inclusive development, productivity enhancement and investment, sunrise opportunities, energy transition, and climate action and financing of investment. We have the 17 sustainable development goals of UN and Agenda 2030 to give us the future we want. 17 sustainable development goals and 169 targets to be achieved. Making urbanization work for the poor through new technologies. This is the topic of the today's webinar. I would like to quote very important reports from United Nations on this topic. I was quite impressed by this report. That's why I thought that I should, quote the report of its relevant importance. Urbanization, expanding opportunities, but deeper divides. Expanding opportunities, but deeper divides. UN's World Social Report 2020 was published on 21st February 2020. It talks about whether the process of urbanization is harnessed and managed or allowed to fuel growing divides. For the first time in history, more people now live in urban than in rural areas. And over the next 3 decades, global population growth is expected to take place almost exclusively in the world's cities and towns. The total number of people living in cities is expected to grow from approximately 4.4 billion today to 6.7 billion in 2050. Like some other mega trends, urbanization has the potential to become a positive transformative force for every aspect of sustainable development, including the reduction of inequality. When properly planned and managed, urbanization can reduce poverty and inequality by improving employment opportunities and quality of life, including through better education and health. But when poorly planned, urbanization can lead to congestion, higher crime rates, pollution, increased level of inequality, and social exclusion. It's very important points that. So once again, that whether the process of urbanization is harnessed and managed or allowed to fuel growing divides is an important statement which the report talks about it. Inequality within cities has economic, social, and spatial dimensions. Economically, inequality is generally greater in urban than in rural areas. The Gini efficient of income, Gini coefficient of income equality, Gini coefficient of income inequality is higher in urban areas than in rural areas in 36 out of 42 countries with the data, which is given the data. In economics, the Gini coefficient, also known as the Gini index or Gini ratio, is a measure of statistical dispersion intended to represent the income inequality or the wealth inequality within a nation or a social group. The Gini coefficient was developed by the statistician and a sociologist Corrado Gini. Large cities are generally richer but more unequal than smaller cities. The opportunities that the cities bring are unevenly distributed in space, preventing entire neighborhoods and groups of population from accessing proper health care, good schools, sanitation, piped water, employment opportunities, and adequate housing, among others. Slums are the most notable extreme of the spatial concentration of urban poverty and disadvantage. Uncontrolled growth of many cities have resulted in inadequate provision of public services and a failure to guarantee a minimum quality of life for all urban residents. The current speed of urbanization in developing countries makes urban governance and adequate planning increasingly urgent. As the cities grow, inequality is likely to increase unless we implement policies to address it. And I also, and when there is no one size fits all solution to reducing urban inequality, some governments have been able to address the spatial, economic, and social aspects of the urban divide and promote inclusive urbanization, including in rapidly growing cities. They suggest the successful strategies have four elements in common. First, they have established land and property rights, paying particular attention to security of tenure for people living in poverty. Second, they have improved the availability of affordable housing, infrastructure, and basic services and access to these services since good transportation network, including between residential and commercial areas, are key to spatial connectivity and economic inclusion. Third, they have facilitated access to education and decent employment for all urban residents. Fourth, they have introduced a mechanism to allow participation in decision making, encouraging input from all stakeholders on the allocation of public funds and on the formulation, monitoring, and evaluation of all policies. I also would like to quote World Social Report 2021, Reconsidering Rural Development. It talks about that 4 out of every 5 people who face extreme poverty around the world live in rural areas. Many rural areas are witnessing severe depletion and degradation of natural resources, contributing to climate change and the recurrence of zoonotic diseases such as COVID-19. And it points the ways in which rural development can be reset to achieve sustainable development. It calls for moving rural development to the center of attention instead of relegating it as an appendage of urban development. It calls for moving rural development to the center of attention instead of relegating it as an appendage of urban development, for ending the urban-rural divide through the adoption of in situ urbanization model, for ending within rural inequality, and for achieving rural development while preserving the environment. And this report also shows that new digital and frontier technologies are creating opportunities for achieving these goals. What is needed is to seize these opportunities. What is needed is to seize these opportunities and to convert into reality the long-standing goal of eradicating the rural-urban disparity. This is the World Social Report to 2021. I would like to quote a webinar talk on by Dr. Jabamale Vinanji Arachi, former principal advisor to the Director General, United Nations UNIDO, Vienna, on 5th December 2020. In this webinar series, it is titled Seizing Opportunities in Open Innovation and Value Creation Network in Digital World for Self-Reliant Economy. And also in another talk by Mr. Vishnu Chandra, my then junior Deputy Director General of National Informatics Center, my then junior colleague, he talked on National Digital Twine Program. National Digital Twine Program need for a robust geospatial infrastructure. This is necessary in every smart city program, which is not there in many of the smart city program. Urbanization problems in developing countries. I also would like to quote the problem associated with urbanizations are high population density, inadequate infrastructure, lack of affordable housing, flooding, pollution, slum creation, crime, congestion, and poverty. This is from the report published by the Faculty of Management at Vancouver Island University. Urban resilience, urbanization. I would like to quote a report from Curry and University from India, which quotes world urbanization prospects, the 2014 revision of the UN report. India's urban population is expected to grow from 410 million in 2014 to 814 million by 2050. It is expected to add 4 new mega cities by 2030. And 4 of the Indian cities, namely Ahmedabad, Bangalore, Chennai, and Hyderabad, with currently 5 to 10 million inhabitants, are projected to become mega cities in the coming years for a total of 7 mega cities. Ahmedabad, Bangalore, Chennai, Hyderabad, Mumbai, Kolkata, and Delhi. And this is projected in the country by 2030. Africa and Asia are urbanizing faster than the other regions of the world and are projected to become 56 and 64% urban, respectively, by 2050. According to the 2022 edition of the United Nations World Population Prospects, released on June 2022, it says that India is projected to surpass China as the world's most populous country in 2023. India's urban snapshot. India has launched a national urban digital mission. There are about over 4,400 statutory towns and cities in India, with around 40 crores inhabitants today. 40 crore people are living in 4,400 towns and cities. At the current rate of growth, urban population in India is estimated to reach a staggering 60 crores by 2030. According to the census, as many as 53 cities in India had a million plus population. It is projected that more than 50% of the country's population will be urban by 2050. So it means that by some estimates, India needs to build a Chicago every year. India needs to build a Chicago every year and is expected to see an influx of population of the size of the entire USA into cities over the next decade. Hypothesis that urbanization is necessarily beneficial for economic growth cannot be taken for granted. The hypothesis, it talks about it, that urbanization is necessarily beneficial for economic growth cannot be taken for granted. Our cities have to overcome a number of challenges in order to realize their potential as engines of growth. The level of urbanization across states is asymmetric. The level of urbanization across states in India is asymmetric. Indian cities suffer from inefficiencies of service delivery and severe stress on infrastructure. As India continues on its trajectory of growth, the quality of its urbanization will become paramount to ensure that the growth is sustainable and equitable. This requires a shift from business as usual to a long-term integrated approach towards economic growth and urbanization. Hence, there is a need for a paradigm shift through shared digital infrastructure. And it talks about, ease of living, ease of access to government services, startups, lowered barriers to entry, ease of doing business, ease of scaling, data-driven policy and governance, systematic data for research and innovation, enhanced tools, better systems, capacity building and recognition, real-time data management learning tools, and over the next 5 years of governance, in 28 states and 8 union territories and all urban local bodies. That's how Government of India has launched National Urban Digital Mission with the aim of building the shared digital infrastructure that will strengthen the capacity of urban ecosystems to solve complex problems at scale and speed, building cities that work for people. That is Smart Cities Mission. India is already using public digital infrastructure like Jantan, Aadhaar Mobile, India Stack, and UPI to address crucial needs at speed and scale. And this is very important. And also has launched a national urban innovation stack on the layers of India's stack to provide urban solution platform with core services infrastructure and core data infrastructure, standards, specification, and certification. Citizen, community, government employee, business and industry, experts, planning, finance, implementation and monitoring, and enabling services, infrastructure services, and data exchange. The Smart City Mission of the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs of India is in the process of creating a blueprint of National Urban Innovation Hub as a foundational institution that can coordinate a nationwide ecosystem for identifying and solving problems at scale and with speed. The purpose of Smart City Mission is to drive economic growth and improve the quality of life of people by enabling local area development and harnessing technology, especially technology that leads to smart outcomes. Smart cities need national digital twin program, the need for a robust geospatial infrastructure. This is what is happening. I would like to quote my address at the National Commerce and Industry body, which is called ASOCHAN, Associated Chambers of Associated Chambers of Commerce and Industry India, on a topic on IT in municipal management and urban development for sustainability, which was held on 5th October 2012 in New Delhi. I was the chief guest, and that time I was Deputy Director General, National Informatics Center. I would like to quote what I said in 2012, and now it is 2022, 10 years. While addressing, I told improving municipal management for cities to succeed. Managing them well is crucial. Improving municipal management for cities to succeed and managing them well is crucial, as cities produce more than 70% of its GDP and drive development. Since cities produce more than 70% of its GDP and drive development, so we have to improve municipal management for cities and manage them well. These are all crucial, and this has to succeed. And there are 4 functional units: administration, engineering, health, finance, town planning, and revenue. They have to be totally automated. 10 years before I said it. Administration, engineering, health, town planning, finance, and revenue are to be totally automated. ICT enabled integrated land use and environmental planning for sustainable urban development. Municipality needs to have a workflow system with its residents, directly with the people. And that is to have an email, to start with an email service, to achieve digital inclusion of its residents and let it become a Facebook for its district and state and central department of that located, in that, municipality. So that no district government, no state level department, and the central department should collect data independently. They should draw from either local, local body or urban local body, rural local body or urban local body. And also, I addressed it, that operationalization of urban information system and the establishment of a National Center for Municipal Informatics and Computing, National Center for Municipal Informatics and Computing, and introducing, I also said it, municipal police systems as operationalized in many developed countries, because we should know that who is stealing what, who is doing what is needed. That has to be an automatic information availability to the municipal authorities. So it is National Center for Municipal Informatics and Computing and municipal police system, and also every municipality, urban city to have an email server exclusively to deal with their people. And digital inclusion, he suggested to establish mail server for each municipality, for every resident of the municipality, and operationalize as an end-to-end workflow system, and establish a seamless integration of all functions with the citizen-centric platform. Also said that IT skill development centers in all municipal schools in Delhi to start with, to begin with the syllabus of National Institute of Open Schooling of the Ministry of Human Resources Development. And he also advocated ASOCHAM, which you are having this conference today. Please have and take initiative with all the mayors of National Capital Territory of Delhi. Till today, nobody has taken any initiative. But there are national initiatives are going on. As per the synopsis of the guest speaker, urbanization has become center of every modern growth story. No country in the world has ever developed without urbanizing. Between now and 2050, an additional 2.5 billion people will be added to cities. And of those, 90% are in Africa and Asia. Therefore, urbanization presents the single most powerful economic growth opportunity for developing countries in this region, and particularly to lift millions of people out of poverty. However, for cities to be this powerful force for change, they require careful management both of the cities that currently exist and those that are still to come. Very important statement. Such the benefits of density outweigh the costs. Given that the size and number of cities set to grow substantially in the next years, the challenges facing policymakers only have a small window of opportunity to get it right. This requires placing urbanization policy at the forefront of local, national, regional, and global agenda. I'm very happy to mention that 2012 I said that you please place an email server, and today you are saying that place urbanization policy at the forefront of local, national, regional, and global agenda. One of the advantages that the countries that are undergoing the majority of their urbanization processing now is that they are urbanizing in a technology-rich environment. Never before have we had the opportunity to benefit from the advancement that the current environment provides us. This talk will highlight how the area that is often felt to leapfrog development, namely the construction of smart cities, have many times failed to live up to the promises, particularly for the poor. However, the ability of technology to unleash many new sources of data is one of the areas that, if well harnessed, has some of the greatest potential in supporting achieving these promises of the cities that work, smart cities. This, in turn, will not only bring benefits to all the urban dwellers, but will have the substantial impact on being able to unleash opportunities for the poorest segments of the society, as it can unlock the benefits of cities for them. With this background, let me turn to the address by our speaker, Madam Astrid Rosemary Haas, urban advisor, independent consultant, Kampala, Uganda, and former policy director, International Growth Center, London School of Economics, on the topic making urbanization work for the poor through new technologies. Today's topic will motivate and galvanize the participants watching over telecast through facebook.com/Shobhit University India, youtube.com/Shobhit University in, or linkedin.com/company/Shobhit University. Let us unlock the opportunities in India and elsewhere at the earliest. Let me introduce the guest speaker to the audience, Mr. Manish. Astrid is an urban economist working in both research and practice, supporting cities around strategy generally and specifically to strengthen their financial systems with a focus on unleashing new opportunities for subnational financing. She is currently an extraordinary lecturer in the Department of Economics at the University of Pretoria and a fellow at the Infrastructure Institute at the School of Cities at the University of Toronto. In addition, Astrid has worked extensively with the city governments across Africa and Asia in her diverse roles, including previously as an urban economist with the Asian Development Bank and policy director at the International Growth Center. She holds an MA in International Economics and International Development from Johns Hopkins University, USA. In 2016, she was nominated by the University of Cape Town as one of the Africa's young leaders. And in 2020, she received Johns Hopkins University's Outstanding Recent Graduate Award for her work on urbanization. Astrid has wide experience spanning government and non-governmental organizations across multiple countries. With this, I would like to welcome Madam Astrid Haas to talk on making urbanization work for the poor through new technologies. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Moni, not only for the invite, but for such a wonderful introduction. I think you have set up the talk extremely well and highlighted the importance of urbanization before I've even had a chance to get into it. But it's great to hear that there are other advocates everywhere else for well-managed urbanization. So I really appreciate that. I also want to thank His Excellency, the Chancellor, and also the Vice Chancellor, as well as His Excellency, the Secretary General of ARDO, for hosting this webinar series and for having us here today and providing the platform to be able to discuss this important topic. Now, I'm going to share some slides, and what I'm going to do is, let me share them now. Whilst it's starting to share, I'm going to give a little bit, there we go. Let me put it in presentation mode. Are you able to see the slides? Yes, I think so. Okay, let me give you a quick overview of what my presentation will look at today. I'm going to start with why urbanization is so important and why it has been the center of every modern growth story. I think it's important to understand what this opportunity is that we face very much now in our current economic situation. But I want to also then stress the next bit is that it's not just any urbanization, but as Professor Moni highlighted, it's well-managed urbanization that's going to unleash these opportunities. And the fact that in some places across the globe, and I will use my own country, Uganda, as an example, we're not managing urbanization well. The biggest impacts are on the poorest people of society. So urbanization is not working for the poor at the moment. However, we can make it work. And as highlighted, the biggest opportunities that those countries that are going through their urban transition right now are urbanizing in a technology-rich environment. So how can we harness this technology? Well, often when we think about technology, it's linked to the concept of smart cities. The challenge is that the concept of smart cities has not very well been defined. And so it has been interpreted in a variety of ways. And in some ways, it has been interpreted that have resulted in very capital heavy investments that have not necessarily unleashed the trickle-down effects on the poor. That being said, and this is where the final part of my presentation will go, the opportunities that technologies do provide, and this is me speaking from my position as an economist, is new sources of data that we've never had before. And this data really allows us to plan and govern cities well. And if we plan and govern cities well, we unleash the forces of urbanization, which in turn will benefit the poor, that will benefit all of us, but the poor the most. So that's the outline of my presentation. So let me start with a quote. This is about a city. It's it's a city described with crowded housing, located back to back with no ventilation. Water was collected at communal. Yeah.
Madam, your slide is not visible. It is stopped with the first slide.
Yes, it's so I haven't moved it yet. It yet. I'm going to move it. Yeah. Water is collected at communal standpoints. You're lucky if you go there and you are able to get water. Cholera and typhoid are rife. It's easier to relieve yourself on the street than to find a latrine. And 43 out of 100 children were dying before their first birthday. Now, this is that city. This is the city. And this city, in fact, looks exactly like this today. So that description that I've just read you is a description of London, United Kingdom in the 19th century. But it could be a description of many of our poorer cities in Africa and in Asia. And so the point is how do we get from a situation that is what was described to be able to unleash the power of cities, as has happened in London, United Kingdom? Now, for centuries and all across the globe, this is a global phenomenon. This is a global phenomenon across history. People have been flocking to cities in search of opportunities. They look for opportunities for jobs. They look for opportunities of public services, which are usually better than in rural areas in many places. But most importantly, they look for opportunities to improve their own lives and the lives of future generations. That's what the promise of cities is. And in fact, if you are living in rural poverty, there's data and evidence to show that if you can make it work in a city, it can be your fastest way out of rural poverty. Firms, so private sector, they like cities for 4 reasons. So in the top left corner, they like it because they have a lot of workers. And a lot of workers bring a lot of skill sets. So they don't have to go and they don't have to search for different skill sets. They can choose amongst many people to find the skill set that they need. So they like cities for that reason. The second reason, and this is moving now across to the right on the top level, is that they have markets. And this is not just the market the city itself produces, but cities are the location and the gateways to national, regional, and international markets. So you think of most cities, you'll know that they'll have a port or an airport. They'll be the source of sort of major road intersections. So they open up the ability to trade. The third reason, this is the bottom left corner, that that private sector like cities or to locate in cities, is because they are located to other private sector firms. And what this does is it allows them to just focus on the thing that they want to produce and be able to get their inputs from another firm. For those of you who may be listening who are economists, this is the basis of Adam Smith's theory of scale and specialization in scale. You can specialize in your one good, and then you can grow, and you can do that very well because you can be able to buy the inputs to produce that one good from elsewhere. The final reason that firms and private sector like to locate in cities is, again, like people, is to do with the infrastructure and services. Now, infrastructure and services may be, I'm speaking here from Kampala, and we don't have great power supply, but we definitely have better power supply than in other areas of Uganda. And most firms, particularly those that are going to provide many large opportunities, are going to need power as a very basic source of input. So this is why cities are the preferred location of firms. And these forces that bring people and firms together is what has unleashed the productivity miracle, which is what it's called, which is this is demonstrated by this graph, which shows the decrease in urban population as a percentage of the total population is the blue line, and the green line is increase in per capita growth of different countries. And one can see a very strong positive correlation between the two. So as urban populations increase, GDP per capita increases too. And this is the basis for why urbanization has been at the center of every economic growth story, modern economic growth story. So there's no country in the world that has reached middle income status without going through an urban transition. And this is what the major opportunity is. Professor Moni already mentioned it, and he quoted various reports. But the idea is that there's a lot of people moving to cities between now and 2050, 2.5 billion, in fact, 90% of those being in Africa and Asia. This graph shows where the share of population living in cities will look like by 2050. So towards the darker green, the darker the green, the higher the percentage of living in urban population. You see in some places in the world, it's going to be close to 100% that are actually going to be living in cities. But in most places, bar a couple of brown shades, everything is green, which means that in most countries in the world, the urban population is going to outstrip the rural population. So it's going to be more than 50%. So this is something that is happening. We know it's happening, and we know it's happening fast. But Professor Moni mentioned, in the case of India, that requires building a Chicago, a city the size, sort of an urban area the size of Chicago every year. And this is actually what it means across the board. So this is how much floor area, so to speak, we're still building. So the majority being in Africa, but China and India is still building, and the majority of its cities sort of far behind. And this floor area addition is very, very important to understand, because these are the cities still to be built. So these are the cities that don't yet exist today, but are still going to be coming between now and 2050. And in the case, the 2/3 that are mentioned on this slide, I know that this is in the case of Africa. I forgot to check whether this is what the dimension is across the world, but at least from the graph, you can see that dimension is quite high across most developing regions. So most cities, the majority of cities, are yet to be built in terms of floor area. And I think it's really important, particularly for this seminar, but this is something that I talk about a lot with national policymakers too, is that urbanization doesn't only benefit the people living in cities. Importantly, it benefits people living in rural areas too. And this is just an illustration. This is a picture of one of the supermarkets here in Uganda, and it's there, just a flyer from a supermarket. It could be anywhere in the world, but it shows what value addition happens, right? So there's butter, there's tea bags, there's juice, there's honey, there's coffee. All of those have been sourced, have products that are sourced in Uganda, but have had value addition happen to them. So milk to butter, tea leaves to tea bags, coffee beans to coffee for drinking with roasting, fruits to juice. And it's that value addition that creates incredible productivity gains for those who live in rural areas. The graph on the right shows this in terms of how people's diets change when they move to urban areas. Now, this is particularly taken from West Africa, but there is evidence from this across the globe. When people move to cities, two things happen. One is that there's less space to grow their own food, so they got to buy their food, which gives a market for those who are growing food to sell their food. The second thing is their diets move from much more from grains, so from unprocessed foods to processed foods. So instead of wanting just, for example, to buy milk, they're now going to want butter and cream and yogurt. Instead of wanting to just buy fruits, they're going to want to buy fruit juice. And so that gives farmers the opportunity to actually improve their incomes through value addition as well, and then sell these in cities. So I think I just want to re-emphasize the point. The point is urbanization doesn't only benefit urban dwellers, it benefits the whole country and rural areas as well, because it allows this change in, it provides a market for value-added goods. And it's important to mention, again, Professor Moni highlighted the link to the Sustainable Urban Development Goals. One major change since the Millennium from the Millennium Development Goals to the Sustainable Development Goals was that urbanization was actually added as its own goal. So Sustainable Goal number 11 is about sustainable cities and communities. And so it shows that there's increasing global importance placed on urbanization. But what's even more important, I think, and this next graph shows it, is that you can link achieving every other one of the Sustainable Development Goals to achieving cities. So it's important that we undergo a well-managed urbanization process to alleviate poverty. It's central in trying to achieve our aims towards zero hunger. It's central in terms of providing decent work and economic growth. And obviously, I could go through all of the 17 here, but it is perhaps the only goal that is linked to achieving all the other 16 goals. And furthermore, 65% of the 169 targets underlying the 17 goals are actually linked to urbanization. So we can see this whole, not only is urbanization a major opportunity, it underpins the opportunities that we look at across the Sustainable Development Goals and our other areas as well. However, as noted, this is not just any urbanization. It's only going to be well-managed urbanization that unleashes these productivity gains. Now, again, for the next couple of slides, you'll indulge me that I'll talk about my own country, just because I have the data from my own country to be able to show this. But this is, first of all, this is just a graph that was in The Economist a couple of years ago. But it shows this positive correlation between urbanization and income has held very well in sort of recently urbanizing areas in Asia. But if you look at the graph on the right, in Africa, that correlation is not holding at all. So we're urbanizing very quickly, but the gains in income and the gains in productivity have not materialized. And in fact, in some cases, like I'll just highlight here, Liberia, the increase in urbanization is actually, is actually associated with a decrease in GDP. This is because, and this is not only for Liberia, it's just that Liberia is well highlighted on this graph, that many drivers of people moving to cities are, in places like Liberia, conflict. So cities provide relative security during times of conflict. So the urban populations grow substantially, but obviously during times of conflict, infrastructure gets destroyed and also cannot get built. So cities cannot hold the urban population in a way that makes it productive. Other areas, so for example, Zimbabwe is also one that's going backwards, which may not have had conflict in recent times like Liberia per se, but in places like Zimbabwe, drivers of urbanization are really sort of escapes of rural poverty and trying to find opportunities in cities where cities don't provide opportunities, whereas in other places, people have moved to cities as rural agriculture has become more productive. So it's not necessarily to escape rural poverty; it's just to sort of move up the chain. So this is sort of the description of the graph here in Africa. And why do poorly managed cities not support a sufficient investment climate? Here are two graphs from the now defunct Doing Business Index from the World Bank, but it's still very illustrative. On the left graph, you see the average time it starts to take a business, the average time it takes to start a business. So in the light blue line is an average for the OECD countries. The dark blue line is an average for sub-Saharan Africa. As you can see, the average times are falling in both cases, but still much higher in sub-Saharan Africa than in the OECD. And this is a good proxy for the cost of doing business, right? So the regulatory impediments that firms have when they come and try and start start a business in many of these cities, right? They have to go through many bureaucratic processes, a lot of red tape to be able to overcome this. And this is going to put some firms off wanting to be able to locate in cities. The right graph is a proxy for infrastructure. So what this is showing is the average cost to obtain an electricity connection as a percentage of income per capita. The dark blue line is, again, sub-Saharan Africa. The light blue line is the average across the OECD. You can see that this is substantially higher in sub-Saharan Africa than it is in the OECD. And as mentioned before, any firm is going to need electricity as a very substantial input to its production. There's hardly any firms, or none that I can think of right now, that don't need power as a basic form of input. Now, another thing I want to highlight about this graph, this is just the average cost to obtain it, right? So this means that even if you can pay that cost and you can obtain it, it doesn't show that you always actually have electricity. And I know this, for example, in my own case, you know, I pay for power. I have an electricity connection, but I have a lot of blackouts. And so that's another sort of infrastructure impediment that makes it difficult for these firms to locate in cities. So what does that result in? Well, it results in a lack of firms locating in these cities, and a lack of employment opportunities. These two graphs that you see on the screen now, the top one shows employment density in cities of London, New York, and Hong Kong. It may be a little bit small on your screen, but all you need to take from these graphs is that the higher the peak, the higher the employment density. And in places like London, New York, and Hong Kong, there are, at its peak, between 120 and 151,000 jobs per kilometer squared. New York being here the highest at 151,600 jobs per kilometer squared. So you can see the employment density is extremely high. So there's a lot of jobs there. The bottom one shows my own city, Kampala, which shows that at its peak, right? So compared to 151,600 jobs in New York, the peak in Kampala is 1,185 jobs. So very, very substantially different. Another difference is this peak from 1,885 jobs is that this actually decreases. The peak is 22,989 jobs in the center of the city. 22,000 jobs, still substantially less than 151,000. But the point is, this peak decreases very rapidly. So this peak decreases by 32.4% every kilometer you move away from the CBD. So there's just not enough jobs. And what does that mean? That means that people who move to the city still need to survive, right? We talked about the fact that they now need to buy food because they can't grow their own food at a very basic level. So they start their own businesses, right? And this is the majority of the poorer population. There are estimates that between sort of 60 and 80% of Kampala as urban population is employed in the informal sector. But what does it mean to be employed in the informal sector? Well, it means that what you're doing is going to remain very small. So the two pictures you have here are two pretty standard jobs you find. The top one is what we call boda bodas. They're motorcycle taxis. These are always young men, who buy or they rent a motorbike and they take customers across the city as a taxi. But we have a massive proliferation right now. So I think we don't actually know, we don't have a census, but the last census that were done, there are at least somewhere between 200,000 and 300,000 boda bodas operating in the city. The bottom one is a typical job for women, which is selling agricultural produce. Which is obviously good because people need to buy food. But if you were to extend this photo further, you would see that there's going to be many, many women selling exactly the same thing. So everyone will be selling tomatoes, or everyone will be selling potatoes without very much product differentiation. So this pushes the price down because you can't compete if you can't compete on price. So the World Bank did a census of the informal sector in Kampala in 2016. And of the 2,243 informal firms, this is 2016. So this was before COVID. They found that already 93% of micro enterprises were operating at or even just below the poverty line. So one has to imagine this. These are the enterprises that people are trying to make the living. 93% were hovering around the poverty line. Now, I emphasize that this was before COVID because Uganda went through one of the harshest lockdowns in the world, where for nearly 2 years, many of these people could not operate. And what we actually saw was that they were pushed over the poverty line, in fact. And one of the things that we saw that we've rarely ever seen in Uganda. Uganda is on the equator, so we are a very fertile country, and food is not usually an issue except for in the northern regions. But we saw people go hungry in the city because their lack of income meant they couldn't buy food anymore. Another factor is that 70% of those so these are small businesses. 70% of those only have one employee, right? So we're not talking about them employing other people. They're just serving themselves and their family. This is very much a youth problem. And it's very much a gender problem. Most of the small businesses are owned by women, and and a majority are owned by the youth. And then I think the final statistic is, there's often a lot of talk about Uganda being an extremely entrepreneurial country. Everyone's starting a business. But actually, when you ask people, they would prefer to have a wage job because of the job security. So it's entrepreneurship it's entrepreneurship to survive rather than entrepreneurship to thrive, so to speak. And this has the added effect that it erodes the money the city needs to invest in the city. So the average, this isn't great in pounds, but the average turnover for one of these firms, or for 70% of these firms, was below £2,000 a year. So that's maybe approximately, let's say, $2,500 a year. So extremely small. But if you have the majority of your firms earning below $2,500 a day, you can't, as a city, earn a lot of tax on that, regardless of whether if you collect your tax well, because it's a very small tax base. So the graph on the right shows the Kampala capital city's taxes over the period 2010 to 11 to 2016-17, which is great. You can see that there's been an upward trend, and there's been a lot of efforts to have that upward trend. This is own source revenue, so this is what the city collects as tax. But at its peak in 2016-2017, it collected $25 million for a city that has 1.5 million people at night and about 4 million people during the day. So this is nothing when you think about all the investments that need to be made in a city. And I'm using Kampala here as an illustration, but many of the cities that I work in, the same story applies. And so it doesn't allow the city to manage urbanization, invest in the infrastructure that's needed. And this badly managed urbanization affects everyone. We all sit in traffic for the congestion that you mentioned. We all breathe in really poor air quality because everyone is sitting in traffic and we can't get a public transport system. But badly managed urbanization disproportionately affects the poor the most because they can't afford the city. And these are just pictures of slums. I actually think these pictures are from places in India, but they could be anywhere, right? So this is the sort of the manifestation of poorly managed urbanization. So I finished the sort of section on why urbanization is an opportunity. But it needs to be well-managed urbanization. And if we don't manage urbanization right, the poor are most affected. I'm going to now link this to the opportunities of technology. But before I do so, I think I want to start with a caveat about the smart cities concept. So particularly across the cities I work, there's a notion that we can leapfrog development by building dedicated smart cities, and this will unlock all the benefits of urbanization mentioned in the first couple of slides. Now, there's two caveats I have for or two challenges that come of this. One is that we have not well-defined smart cities. It's one of those terms that you ask 10 different people and you will get 10 different interpretations and 10 different definitions of it, which is fine, except the lack of tight definition also allows it for as a term to be abused in ways that don't necessarily benefit urban management. The second challenge is that it's not necessarily always leapfrogging because cities have been built for centuries. Since the ancient Roman and ancient Athens and ancient Persia, we've had cities, and there are technologies that we have from there that work and still work today. And so sometimes it's really about the dumb technologies, but it's about doing it better. And we can't overcome certain pieces. So particularly, we've had many centuries of human ingenuity have been spent on developing solutions to manage these downside of density, right? So here you have sort of the cars versus the train. The train works very well. The challenge is the train is very expensive, capitally, it's a capital expensive investment. The challenge here is not to try and leapfrog this idea of needing mass transportation by having driverless cars or whatnot, because that's not actually solving the problem. We're just creating a technological advancement to a problem that we already have, right? So we have, in some cases, we have the solution, for example, a train or I used a train here as an example, but, mass transportation systems exist, and we can't get by needing to make those investments. And in some cases, they're more durable. So there's a picture of the drainage system in Rome that was built by the ancient Romans in the 6th century that still functions today, right? And when we think about how technology comes with it, like more and more technology comes with a shelf life. For some things like drainage or water systems, we don't want a shelf life. We want something that's going to outlast us, because that's what the city needs. So in terms of its fundamental infrastructure, it needs that. And so things that have transmitters, things that have sensors, obviously can be helpful in certain ways in collecting data. But having a sensor and a transmitter doesn't overcome the need to build the drainage system, right? So we still need to invest in the fundamental infrastructure, even if we want to make it technologically savvy. And in some cases, particularly when we talk about the poor, technologies that we already have are actually more actionable. So the picture on the right comes from Harare in Zimbabwe. It's an affordable housing project that was built with local ingenuity and local design, because the way this local design works, it allows for a heating and a cooling system without necessarily needing any electricity. So the way the design of the architecture is that the wind and the position of the building allows for heating and cooling. This comes at a lower cost and is more actionable for poor than having a house that needs an air conditioning system and then a heating system, or needs to run on electricity, particularly when electricity is unaffordable, as the other graph showed. And the final piece is that often with the challenge with smart cities is the way we conceive of them is that the conceptions we have of what a smart city is involves a lot of private capital investment. And this just prices out the poor. This is a picture from Nigeria, one of the biggest producers of smart cities in Africa. I think they have 25 ongoing smart city projects, if I'm not mistaken. And this is two pictures from the same city. This is Lagos in Nigeria, the biggest city in Africa. And it shows the stark divide, right? So what we're doing here is exacerbating inequalities and exacerbating poverty. And in this city that they're building, this is just a schematic diagram, it's not even actually finished. Already, before the city is even finished, a 2-bedroom apartment in the city, before it's finished, is already being priced at $1 million and above, right? So we're not only talking about pricing out the average poor resident, we're talking about pricing out many residents and really building enclaves for the rich. So I think my point here is not that we don't need to think of smart, but we need to think of what our definition of a smart city is, because Professor Moni, you mentioned this before, a smart city is actually the city that works best for the people that live and work in it and doesn't produce enclaves of inequality and poverty. And the challenge that we see with many of the smart city projects is this idea that we can leapfrog, this idea that we can build the new Dubai, this idea that we just want the best technology and the best. What it does is it exacerbates poverty and inequality because it provides these enclaves. So what we need to do is redefine our way that we think of smart cities, or not redefine, but we need to think of a way that really focuses on what technologies improve urban livability, promote local economic development, ensure sustainability and resilience, and meet the growing demands, given that we have limited resources, right? So this is the area that I think really that's what smart cities are. And now to the final part of my presentation, I'm going to just talk about one area of technology. This is the area that I'm very excited about, which is data. I'm an economist, so I love data. And so I'm just going to show you a couple of examples from across developing countries about how data has helped us solve some of these governance challenges and better manage cities. So technology and the data revolution. So we are urbanizing in a technology-rich world. We're urbanizing in a data-rich world, and that's very exciting.
Can you put the previous slide? Just to move. Okay.
This one?
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Carry on.
Thank you. So we're urbanizing in a data-rich environment, and that's great. But I will also caveat that more data is not always better than less. We have to have a point of collecting the data. And the point that I'm showing here with all these examples is how data improves city governance and management, because better, as where I started was, better city governance and management unleashes the power of urbanization, which is what unleashes the benefits for everyone in the city, but especially the poor. So what does this mean? It means we use data to improve our targeting and allocation of resources. It can help us forecast future demands for public services, and it can help us evaluate the impact of our policies so that we know whether our policies are doing the things that we want it to do, or we have to course correct. So one area that data is really useful is that we can now, those 2/3 of cities, that major amount of floor area that needs to be built, those Chicagos that need to be built in India, we know where that is happening. We know where people are moving because we can now do population projections through satellite imagery over time, and we see what the course of movement is, which means that then we can also plan in advance of people settling. And this is important because evidence has showed being able to plan for infrastructure in advance of people settling is 3 times less expensive than doing it once people have settled. So if you need to put in a road and people are already there, that's very expensive to do, not only financially, but the social and political costs of having to move people. So knowing where people are and then being able to plan, and the pictures here come from Hargeisa in Somaliland, from Tanzania. Essentially, in Hargeisa, they figured out Hargeisa is a very poor city, but they figured out here the people are moving. They've just used a bulldozer to outline, please don't settle here because we're going to put a road here one day when we have the money to. Leave it free. You can settle in between and that's fine. But they're planning in advance of settlement, and that's exciting, an exciting use of data. Data can help us better understand who the invisible urbanites are. And so invisible urbanites are often those working in the informal sector because they're not necessarily captured by the tax system. They're not captured by any system, but they make up the majority of the urban residents. But there have been various attempts by networks of community organizations. This particular picture comes from Slum Dwellers International, where they have residents help map themselves. So they use the advent of mobile phone technology. Well, it's not really the advent anymore, but they use mobile phone technology and apps to be able to conduct these large profiles and surveys and mapping of invisible urbanites by training people in the communities to do it. That creates a big digitized and open source database where the data is owned by the communities, but then we actually know who's there and what their needs are. And this is important for a city to be able to target their services. So I'm rushing through the case studies a little bit because I'm aware of time, but obviously I'm open to anyone, asking questions or coming back to me about any of these. And Professor Moni has kindly said, if there's anyone who would like to connect with me, he would connect us accordingly. So forgive me if I'm rushing a little bit at this point, but I'm happy to discuss these in any more detail. Thirdly is about improving transport and connectivity. I have various examples here. But on this slide, you see, you can improve commuting times with GPS data. This is from Santiago in Chile, where they equipped all of their buses with transmitters. So they were able to They were able to collect GPS pulses from 6,000 individual buses on 700 different routes, excuse me. And from this, the city was able to optimize route design, was able to optimize their investments in congestion, and it was able to improve its traffic management overall. Similarly, there's a lot of, the middle one shows sort of social media data. There's a lot of companies now that do this, where they scrape the internet for social media data. And this helps them like look at sentiments of publics towards design. So for example, if the city invests in a policy, what is the discussion in the social media space around that positive, around that policy? Is it positive or is it negative? One thing I shall mention here, though, one has to be highly careful with this data, because you can then exclude a whole part of the population who's not on social media, either because they're too poor to own a phone or because they're not literate. And so in some ways, particularly in the use of social media data, one needs to make sure that one is still finding ways to capture the sentiments of the wider population in the city, so as not to exacerbate inequalities through that. The third technology on here is an app that records street bumps. I think this would be useful in Uganda. So drivers can just download the app on their phone, and it measures when there's a bump, so it can show the city where the potholes are and that need to be fixed. I think probably in my city there are way too many to fix, and probably the app would overload and crash. But the point is, these are the types of technologies that are being used to improve traffic management. Here's a case study from Bangalore in India, actually. And this is a really interesting one, because this one shows the ability to see whether a policy will work. So in Bangalore in India, they were looking at whether imposing a congestion charge would help traffic and traffic flow, given congestion areas. So they piloted this with GPS devices and license plate readers in, I think, 500 vehicles over a certain period of time. And had these 500 vehicles sort of pay these different congestion charges in different ways, and try to see whether this would be a policy that would work. And actually, the ultimate outcome was it didn't work. And so this is why they didn't actually implement it. So it's a way technology can be a way to really understand what policies work and what policies don't work, because policies can be costly, not only for the city to implement, but for the person to comply to as well. So if it's something that doesn't work, like a congestion charge, then just don't do it. And this is an example of that. That was the outcome of that discussion. This is from Bogota in Colombia, where they had one of the sort of arguably most successful bus rapid transit system projects. It was implemented in 2000. And here they looked at how employment changed along the lines. So the lines are the black lines, and you can see the red areas. So one is the change in residential opportunities, and one is the change in employment opportunities. So the red areas are, the more red they are, the more employment opportunities, and the more housing opportunities. You can see these are clustering towards the end of the lines. Now, this was very exciting for the city, because they're saying, oh, well, you know, our bus rapid transit system is improving employment opportunities. But they also found this was disproportionately accruing to higher income populations. So what they did is then they tried to see how they could subsidize the bus fare for poorer populations so that they could also benefit in the same way. So this is a place where data has shown you how a response to a change in infrastructure is, and then allowed the city to tweak its response based on the information they're finding. This is, sorry, I'm just skipping the previous slide, but it's also from Kampala. This is from Kampala. This is from mobile phone data. So this is not even collected by anyone putting anything on their phone. It's just the data collected from the mobile phone masts, which show where congestion is during different periods of the day, because you can see what people are sitting and moving based on the pinging of your mobile phone to the mast. So this is really what we call big data. And again, it helps the city plan, because it's very clear that I don't know what time. Oh yeah, it says there 6 p.m. Like in the CBD, there is clearly a lot of congestion, right? But some roads are actually freer and easier to move. So this is like a passive use of, well, passive. This is not anyone needing to do anything. except this is just collecting data that already exists because people are sitting in traffic with their mobile phones. This is an example from Kigali where they use satellite data, remote sensing data to observe changes in the housing supply. So affordable housing and the provision of affordable housing is a challenge for every rapidly growing city. So cities want to be able to observe their building stock, which is what this did. But then in addition, what they did is they used machine learning approaches to train the algorithm to also look at changes in the quality of housing supply. So not only just in the quantity or in the quality. So they could see which area of the cities were developing more slums and which area in the cities were actually starting to develop more affordable housing. And they were able to tailor their affordable housing policy accordingly. So this is the use of satellite data and remote sensing data combined with machine learning to be able to really sort of tackle the problem of affordable housing supply. This is the area I work in, municipal finance. Technology as a way to improve tax administration has huge potential. The blockchain, GIS, being able to create apps. So this is from Sierra Leone in Freetown, where they're doing a massive property tax system reform. They've created apps for property tax collectors to fill in, so the data is automatically digitized. They're now moving to new areas of how to automate that system even further. To what you were saying, Professor Moni, already back in 2012, right? They're really sort of using it now, but they're doing it in a way that uses the power of the mobile phone and the mobile phone apps and the data. And improving tax. This in my own city, it's not just about improving how you can collect taxes. It's improving how people can pay you taxes too, right? Paying taxes is a pain generally, but it's even more of a pain if it's very difficult administratively to do. So we use the power of mobile money, for example, which is something that a lot of developing countries now have, so that we moved our tax payment system that you can actually pay via your mobile phone. You can also now get your tax bill directly as an SMS on your mobile phone, which means that more people actually know what they're supposed to pay and can more easily pay it. So again, technology improving the ability for people to pay their taxes is another way that we've sort of increased our tax yield, and why you saw that graph of own source revenue going up. This is one that's going to become more and more important with the effects of climate change. This is an example from the city of Cape Town. In Cape Town, they faced the first city to face nearly a full run. They nearly ran out of water. It's the first city in the world where this happened. This was between 2016 and 2018. And so they needed to do a lot of work in terms of trying to ensure that their water supply continued. So they did a number of things, but two that I want to quickly mention is, one, they created these public maps. This is a screenshot, which you were able to find on your website, which showed you house by house whether people were complying to the water supply restrictions, or whether someone, for example, was filling up their swimming pool and not complying. Now, this had two effects. One is you may want to comply, you just don't have the information yourself. So then if you see you're in a red, you're like, oh goodness, I have to change my own behavior. So there's the behavior change aspect that this allows, because you can see what's happening. There's also the social change and the social pressure aspect. If someone sees their neighbor with a red point because their neighbor is filling their swimming pool, and you know your city is running out of water, you may go knock on their door and say, excuse me, please manage your water supply. So there's a behavior change and a social change aspect of understanding and seeing the data. They used actually sensors on their pipe system, and they found that a lot of water was getting lost because it was leaking. The pipes were just leaking. So they could then figure out where they needed to fix their pipes and save the water. So that's another sort of example of technology. Crime, safety, security. You mentioned Professor Moni. This is an example of from New York City. And I won't go through the details of the example. The only point is, this is a city where the data existed, but no one had compiled the data. It was kind of what you were saying before, where every department had a different point of data and no one saw the big picture. So in '94, they put the big picture on a map. And then they saw where the crime hotspots were. And crime hotspots are often linked to poorer areas of the city. But it means they could better target their resources in policing, their scarce resources in policing, to exactly where those crime hotspots were. So this was not about even collecting more information. It was about using the information you have, compiling it, and visualizing it. So about the analysis of data, which was really important in this example. So my final slide, and I brushed through the examples, but I want to just show that, there's a multiple ways that technology and data have the power to improve management of cities. And management of cities is important because managing urbanization is the fundamental opportunity of unlocking its power and unlocking the economic opportunity. And well-managed urbanization, if done right, is going to unlock these incredible economic opportunities, which we know because we have the examples across history, across the globe, of where this has happened, right? From the UK to China, well-managed urbanization has unlocked these powers. So we know it can happen. So we need to take the advantage that we have of urbanizing in a technology-rich environment, which allows us to benefit from these advancements, right? And we need to really make sure that we allocate these advancements to solve existing and real policy management challenges rather than to pursue abstract and expensive creations, because technology has the opportunity to make urbanization work for everyone, but especially the poor. I've just showed the one example using data and the way that technology generates data and how it can improve city governance, but there are other areas that we could look at too. And, in the case of data, using our 21st century data sources can help us better solve age-old problems, but we need to make sure that we're looking at the problems that we have and not just generating data for data's sake. So at exactly the time I'm supposed to finish, Professor Moni, let me leave it there. I hope that the presentation has sort of reflected and been able to provide some insights and examples for this area. Thank you so much again to yourself, His Excellency the Chancellor, the Vice Chancellor, His Excellency the Secretary General of ARDO for this invitation today.
Thank you very much for your very widespread, talk, quoting ground truth from different parts of the world, from United States, USA, North America, South America, Europe, Asia, Africa, Australia, and so on and so forth. I was quite impressed. I should thank Dr. Jabamali Binanji Arachi to referring you to me to talk to you to deliver the talk. I was quite impressed, and it is very important that you deliver a talk with as an economist on the ground. You talked about it. There are many economists. Are all sit in the chair. They're all armchair economists. But the thing is that, like armchair bureaucrats, armchair technocrats, armchair scientists, but you are an economist, and you work with the real data. And this is that you brought out a situation where that the technology and data. You said that as an economist, you said that the data is the new source of development, and you have to exploit it. You have to understand the data. You can't just use the data only for management information system. You have to use it for decision making. You have built up theory. You built up the theory with the statistics, but the time has come that the theory you adapt to the raw data, which is the ground level data, and then you can see the lot of innovations. That's why that open innovation is more important. That's why I thought that, taking advantage of this title, let me also walk back and what the whole I respect the documents and reports of United Nations, and every country, every people who are working for the administration, development administration, sustainable development, sustainable growth. If the United Nations documents, reports are understood properly, that itself is a big developmental effort. And that's why I thought that I should quote it, and I quoted it appropriately. And also then I thought that 2012 I talked about, because I was the person who was given responsibility national level in 1987 to give as to how to go about for 512 districts computerization, district information system, way back in 1987. And at that time, India had about 512 districts. Now it has got about 753 districts and 28 states, provinces, and 8 union territories. And so I gave 28 sectoral database development programs from bottom-up process and sectoral agriculture, animal husbandry, industry, education, and health, rural development, and so on and so forth, and also a comprehensive village level information system. That's how, and that time technology was not available. And people, it's paper based systems. There were a lot of things that you have to go and collect data physically walking. And it is a telephone systems, wired telephone systems, and communication was the biggest problem. I studied at the grassroots level, took study, and saw that informatics revolution has to take place for information exchange. Then 95, I took I was instrumental in giving a blueprint for IT in agriculture in India. 15 informatics network. Then we must have traveled more than 450 districts. And I was able to see the rural unrest, rural distress, how to bring in technology in rural area. That's how I'm not a man of agriculture science, but a person born and brought up in rural area. Agriculture is in my DNA. So as a mathematics student, as a computer science student, MTech computer science from IIT Chennai, 1976-78 batch. And before that, MSc postgraduate in mathematics from University of Madras, 74-76. I thought that it is a God-sent opportunity to me as a technocrat to bring in technology into the rural area. And I'm very happy, I'm alive. And many of the programs, I was instrumental at the grassroots level development. The way in which I have proposed, if it had been adopted 100% with the technology today, artificial intelligence and big data analytic blockchain, you would have got a grassroots level, village level raw data for planning purposes. And today you have a technology, you don't have a data. Everybody has got smartphone, but they don't have algorithms. Institutions don't build algorithms for decision making. Analysis is more important. Data analytics is important. Now you have a spatial analysis, geospatial technology, GIS technology, big data analytics. But where is data? The data comes in the form of data, digits, 0 and 1, text data, analytics, and even you take health. Health is one thing that, it comes from human health, animal health, soil health, water health, soil, fish health, and environmental health. It is this data alone is existing. It is in vertical silos. Even in an urban area, even in village level, if you put a layer, GS layer, and it is $1 trillion data economy. COVID situation has taught a lesson. 85% of the diseases which we get come from animal, zoonotic diseases. And I visualized long time back, and then from 2010 onwards, I have been voicing that it has to be an agricultural informatics. It has to be put it so that people can get into agriculture and rural development through IT. It's very important. Value chain. People, you have to have, that's how, as a part of the Doubling Farmers Income Committee report of Government of India, as a group leader for 2 volumes, volume 12B is digital technology in agriculture, 7 measurement programs. If this is done, agriculture system will completely digitalized. Then you link with urban area, and that's why when I was asked by the ASSOCHAM, and I thought that with my vast experience, that why every government department should collect data. You have this body, let the people, they work with the people, they let them be the Facebook. Then you get LinkedIn with the government department. I'm just using this as an acronym, Facebook and LinkedIn. And that let the administrations, municipal administration or urban body administration, let them link with the people and let them be the face back. And then every government department at the district level, state level, and national level get it linked. And that's why you say that at least 2012 I said it, that you have at least a mail, so let the people interact with the government with a mail. Don't stop them. Don't ask them to write it in a paper and then throw the paper into the dustbin. So let it be there. Whether one government comes or the second government comes, the communication, the input which is given by the common public will stay there in the system forever till the decision is taken. And I'm very happy now with the Digital India, program in India. Now that's why I thought that I should also bring in both the things, that 2012 what I said it, and also what is happening, national urban digital mission. But the thing is that it is very rightly said it, you said it very clearly, that whether the smart cities are delivering services to the poor, to whom it is giving it. Then when I looked into it, yes, smart cities are there, but the thing is that where is the technology adoption? And you have to have every smart cities, it has to have a strong GIS layer. It has to have a digital twin program for which you need to have, because industries will be there, SMEs will be there, services will be there, industries, secondary and tertiary services. You have to have a geospatial infrastructure to have a national digital twin. That is a very important thing. That so that's why I thought that it's a very important topic, and today you brought out very important, and we hope that both as a moderator and as a guest speaker, we have done our contribution for the administrators, the decision makers, to realize throughout the world that how to make urbanization work for the poor through new technologies. You have 10 technologies which are making impact. And as far as India is, concerned, 63 million SMEs, small, and medium enterprises, micro enterprises, and 14.5 crore operational holders. 85% of operational holders are small and marginal farmers having 2 hectares of land, less than 2 hectares of land. And how to bring them digitally enabled, and then work with the urban as the area for selling, making a realization of their products, produces that. And that is the rural urbanization. A rural area and urbanization is very important. The linkage is very important. And today's topic, I'm very happy about it. Your key takeaway, and the technology and data revolution. You talked about how to use the data for planning for investment, and how to understand the local problems. You do not know what is really happening where. That's why in 2010 itself, I said it, 12 itself, I said it, we have to have a municipal policing system. That policing is not the normal sense of policing. You should know what is really happening on the ground, what is needed. And that's why it's a municipal policing system. And then improving transport and connectivity, like what is happening in Finland. You also gave a lot of example now. And then you have to have now GPS is there with every smartphone. So, and how to, and social media, rather than using this social media for non-productivity exercises and politicizing purposes, how to use for developmental activities to generate employment opportunities in urban areas and rural areas. How to have a primary producers to be converted, and primary agriculture, secondary agriculture, and how to be got into processing industries through technology. That is very important, and you said it very clearly, and you also quoted examples from different cities. And it is true to this is an international webinar series on open source digital technology, and that's why the ARDO, an African Asian Rural Development Organization, they have joined with us to take this technology to all the countries, developing countries. And I am very happy that people like you worked in international bodies, different organizations, Asian Development Bank, and many other London School of Economics as a policy director, and you brought out a complete understanding and innovative address that technology and data can do a revolution to take care of the poor, that is very important. And, as a human being, whether rich or poor, they are knowledgeable, they are intellectual, they are intelligent. They have to be trained. They have to, and that's the reason only government should know, the municipal bodies should know who is what and what is who is where and where is what. They should address 5 W's and 1 H. Why, where, what, which, when, who, by whom, for whom, and how. So for this to address these 5 W's and 1 H, data is necessary. A data not the statistics, a raw data without any normalization, the data is necessary. Then only the data will become a new source of capability, power, and data will become a powerful through various analysis, and it will strengthen our decision making capability. And today, data economy, platform economy is a $1 trillion economy, even health data alone. That's why this university is now working on health informatics value chain to train biology students, +2 biology, BSc biology, to get into MSc health informatics, health data, let it be human health, animal health, plant health, soil health, water health, fish health, and environmental health, and using artificial intelligence, machine learning, and blockchain, and big data analytics. It is very essential. And I see that maybe 10 years from now, there will be a data center with 10,000 data scientists, data analysts, data engineers, working on understanding data emanated from different IoT devices, and see to that for a particular village or a particular urban area, what is needed, what type of data layers can bring in. That is very important. And I'll be very happy that that this is the first university in the world to interact in such a manner with the experts from both India and abroad on grassroots level problems. So I'll be very happy that with your vast experience, you get associated with the Shobhit Institute of Engineering Technology and promote this type. We have MTech in Agricultural Informatics to train BS Agriculture graduates, engineering students, and postgraduate non-agriculture science students to get into agriculture, agribusiness value chain. And both Asia and Africa are all on 7 trillion, economy on agribusiness alone. And value chain is very important. And because every commodity has got a different value chain, it is not one solution fits for everything, one size fits for all. It doesn't work in agriculture. And both Africa and Asia are agriculture smallholders, and same agroclimatic zone, and we get sunshine throughout the year, 365 years. And it's very important to look into this. And technology is very important. And this is and new technologies, and language computing is very important, and startups everywhere is necessary. And your talk has generated interest to establish startups through skill development and entrepreneurs development for problems to be solved. So please get associated with us, and also propagate and bring a lot of experts to join with us to discuss on the problems associated with both Asia and Africa, and through this platform. And also in this area, if it is possible to work out a certification program, a diploma program, a postgraduate program, diploma, please let us work together and through appropriate association and cooperation. And we'll be very happy to work with universities in Uganda, Kampala, in the agricultural informatics, and agribusiness management, and informatics development solutions, informatics and e-governance, and industry 4.0, and health informatics and urban informatics. Thank you very much, and I would like to hear from you. And then, how do you view this address today, and how it will impact, and your final words from you. And then I don't know whether Dr. Jebamale Vinanji Arachi is also joined. I think the time is up, and I would like to hear from you, and then I will close the webinar. Over to you, madam.
Thank you very much. Let me just keep it short by again thanking you. I think this has been an incredibly interesting experience because we've linked both the urban and the rural, and I think that's the really important link that is often missed. I think there's always this implicit notion, particularly amongst policymakers, that we either do urban or we do rural, but in fact it's one continuum, and what happens in the urban affects what happens in the rural, and what happens in the rural affects what happens in the urban. And I think therefore the work that you're doing, particularly with regards to agricultural information technology, deeply impacts what happens in urban markets, and therefore what can happen in terms of the urbanization process. So and then obviously all of this underpinned, as you rightly put, and it was the theme of the lecture today, by the technological revolution. So I think we've come a long way in this short period of time in terms of being able to drive the thread between different what some may say are different and independent pieces, but actually are very, very intimately linked, and all together working for the opportunity for economic growth and development for our respective countries and regions of the world. So thank you very much again. I think you're on mute.
Very much. And I thank Honorable Chancellor, Honorable Vice Chancellor, His Excellency Secretary General Ardo, and my good friend, guest speaker today, Astrid Haas, for your wonderful talk, and also the participants from both India and abroad for listening to us. And for any further queries, please write to me. My email address is that moni@shobhituniversity.ac.in. Thanks for your participation. Greeting from Shobhit University. For more research inquiries, please contact Professor Moni Maraswamy, Professor Emeritus and Chairman, Center for Informatics Development Solutions and Application, and Center for Industry 4.0 Technology Studies and Application, and former Director General, National Informatics Center, Government of India, New Delhi. Thank you very much. We'll close the webinar and